The morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of Terra 7 as Kim Dae climbed into his harvester. The machine looked old and worn, its paint faded from years under the twin suns. But Kim Dae's hands moved over the controls with the precision of someone who had done this exact routine thousands of times before. Every movement was calculated, every turn perfectly timed, to anyone watching from above. He looked like just another farmer starting his day. The Federation scouts who occasionally passed through the system saw exactly what they expected to see. A simple man working simple land with simple tools. They never bothered to look closer. Park Nari, Kim Dae's daughter, walked through the irrigation channels that crisscrossed the colony. She carried a tablet that looked like basic farming equipment, checking water levels and nutrient flows. Her father had taught her that details mattered more than anything else. A valve turned the wrong way, a sensor placed incorrectly, a timing sequence off by even a few seconds. Any of these could ruin everything they had worked for. She knelt beside a water control station, her fingers dancing across the tablet's surface. The readouts showed normal irrigation patterns, but Park Nari saw much more. Hidden beneath the agricultural data were power consumption rates, system diagnostics, and maintenance schedules for equipment that had nothing to do with growing crops. Across the colony, Lee Sun sat in what appeared to be a grain storage facility. The building looked exactly like what it was supposed to be: metal walls, conveyor belts, and massive storage bins filled with wheat. But in a small room at the back, Lee Sun monitored communications equipment that could reach across the galaxy. The signals looked like routine agricultural reports to anyone who might intercept them, whether updates, crop yields, equipment, maintenance. Requests all perfectly normal for a farming colony. The real messages were hidden in the data. Troop movements, supply schedules, and strategic updates flowed through channels that the Federation didn't even know existed. Lee Sun had been managing these communications for 15 years. No one had ever suspected that the quiet farmer was actually coordinating with military installations across human space. Meanwhile, Choiman walked through the equipment yards, clipboard in hand. To observers, he was checking tractors and harvesters, making sure everything was ready for the next planting season. But the equipment diagnostics he ran were far more complex than anything needed for farming. Hidden systems, powered up and shut down on carefully timed schedules. Weapon systems disguised as agricultural. Machinery ran self-tests that looked like routine maintenance. The Galactic Federation barely paid attention to Terra 7. Their official records showed a small farming colony with minimal defenses, a few old patrol ships, and basic sensor arrays. The colony produced enough food to feed itself, and maybe trade a little surplus with passing merchants. Nothing worth worrying about when the galaxy was tearing itself apart in war. For 3 years, the Krex Empire and the Vorthok Collective had been locked in brutal conflict. Entire star systems had been destroyed. Billions had died. The Federation's military was stretched thin, trying to protect their core worlds from the expanding violence. Remote agricultural colonies like Terra 7 were considered safe simply because they weren't worth attacking. This was exactly what the colonists had been counting on. Every day of peaceful farming was another day to prepare. Every routine maintenance check was another opportunity to test systems that would soon be needed. Every communication with other human colonies was another chance to coordinate the plan that had been 20 years in the making. Kim Gabe finished his morning harvest run and parked his machine in the equipment yard. He looked up at the twin suns and smiled. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would discover what Terra 7 really was. The war room aboard the Krex flagship buzzed with desperate energy. Admiral Vex slammed his clawed fist on the tactical display, watching red markers show another failed assault on Vorthok positions. 3 years of fighting had drained the Empire's resources to dangerous levels. Food shortages plagued their core worlds, and their military supply lines stretched thinner each day. "We need those agricultural worlds," growled General Vex, his scarred face twisted with frustration. "Our people are starving while we waste ships on these endless battles." Admiral Dex studied the holographic map floating before him. The Federation controlled dozens of farming colonies scattered across the outer rim. Rich worlds with vast grain fields and livestock ranches that could feed the Empire for years. But the Federation Council had refused every demand for surrender, every offer of negotiation. We take them by force, Dex declared. Start with the weakest targets first. Show the Federation what happens when they defy the Empire. His intelligence officers brought up colony profiles one by one. Most were heavily defended, with orbital platforms and Federation fleet patrols. But one caught his attention immediately. Terra 7 appeared on the display as a small dot, marked with minimal threat indicators. "What's this one?" Axe asked, pointing at the colony. "Agricultural settlement, sir. Population barely 10,000. Defense rating shows only basic patrol. Ships and sensor arrays. No military installations detected." Admiral Vex laughed, the sound echoing through the command center. "Perfect. We'll make an example of this pathetic little farm. Show the Federation what happens when they refuse our generous offers." Assign Strike Force Delta to the mission. 12 warships led by Captain Korth, more than enough firepower to overwhelm a defenseless farming colony. The captain seemed almost disappointed by the easy assignment. "Expect complete surrender within hours," Vex told his staff. "Once word spreads that we can take their colonies at will, the Federation will beg for peace terms." Meanwhile, billions of kilometers away, Kim Day was making breakfast in his farmhouse kitchen when the communication device, hidden in his coffee maker, began to pulse with urgent signals. He had been waiting for this moment for 20 years. Weathered hands moved steadily as he decoded the priority transmission. The message was simple: harvest time. Kim Day walked to his kitchen window and activated what appeared to be a weather monitoring station. To anyone watching, he was simply checking the morning forecast. But the signal he sent was actually a colony-wide alert system that had been disguised as routine weather broadcast for decades. "Severe storm warning," his voice announced over the colony's public address system. "All residents should secure equipment and report to designated shelters immediately." Park Nari heard the announcement while checking irrigation systems near the eastern grain fields. She had been waiting her entire adult life for those specific words. Without hesitation, she abandoned her tablet and started running toward the underground facility hidden beneath the community center. Her real job was about to begin. Across the colony, Lee Sun powered up communication arrays that had been carefully concealed beneath innocent-looking storage buildings. The equipment hummed to life, connecting Terra 7 to a network of hidden installations across human space. After years of maintaining cover, it was time to reveal their true capabilities. The Krex Empire had made a critical error in their intelligence gathering. They had never fought humans before, dismissing them as just another weak species that had joined the Federation for protection. In their arrogance, they assumed that humans were farmers and merchants, not warriors. Captain Korth's Strike Force jumped to hyperspace, confident in their overwhelming advantage. They expected to find frightened colonists begging for mercy. Instead, they were flying straight into the most carefully prepared trap in galactic history. Captain Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Terra 7 grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked exactly as intelligence had described. Endless fields of golden wheat swaying in the breeze, small farming communities scattered across the continents, and primitive machinery moving slowly through the crops. Scan for defensive positions, he ordered his tactical officer. "Nothing significant detected, sir. Few old patrol ships in orbit, basic sensor arrays, no military installations or weapon platforms." Korth smiled with satisfaction. This would be even easier than expected. He opened a communication channel to address the colony directly. "Attention, Terra 7. This is Captain Korth of the Krex Imperial Fleet. You will surrender immediately, or face the consequences of resistance." Below on the planet's surface, Kim Day heard the transmission in the command center he had just entered. The room looked nothing like the farmhouse kitchen he had left minutes earlier. Banks of monitors showed tactical displays, weapon systems, and targeting computers that had been hidden for decades. He pressed a single button on the central console. Across Terra 7, grain silos that had stood peacefully in the fields for 20 years began to change. Metal panels slid away with mechanical precision, revealing the massive rail cannons hidden. Inside, the silos had never been for storing grain at all. They were weapon platforms, disguised as agricultural buildings. Choi Min watched from his station as targeting displays flickered to life around him. The irrigation channels that crisscrossed the colony weren't just for watering crops. They were perfectly designed trenches for deploying defensive weapons. Hidden panels opened in the ground, and automated defense turrets rose from what had appeared to be simple farming equipment in the colony's administrative building. The elderly man who had spent decades greeting visitors as the settlement's peaceful coordinator walked to a wall mirror, removed his worn coveralls and the fake wrinkles that had aged his appearance. Underneath was the crisp uniform of a retired human fleet admiral, complete with decorations from conflicts the Kreks had never even heard of. Admiral Chen had been waiting 20 years for this moment. His retirement to Terra 7 had been the most important assignment of his career. Now, as he pinned his rank insignia to his collar, he prepared to show the galaxy what human military planning could accomplish. Kim Dae settled into the primary fire control station, his weathered farmer's hands now moving across advanced targeting systems with the skill of a master gunner. The calluses on his fingers weren't from farm work. They were from years of operating military equipment during training sessions disguised as agricultural maintenance. Park. Nari raced through underground tunnels that connected every building. In the colony, what visitors had seen as equipment barns and storage facilities were actually sophisticated command centers. She reached her assigned station and began coordinating defensive arrays that had been carefully hidden beneath the colony's peaceful surface. The Kreks fleet hung in space above Terra 7, their sensors still reading the planet as a defenseless farming world. Their instruments couldn't detect the massive power sources humming to life beneath the wheat fields, or the targeting computers that were already calculating firing solutions. Every crop rotation over the past 20 years had been a carefully planned weapons test. When the colonists had moved their equipment in precise patterns across the fields, they were actually testing firing angles and defensive positions. Every harvest season had been a military exercise, with farmers practicing coordinated movements that would allow them to transform from agricultural workers to combat specialists in minutes. The Kreks had fallen for the greatest deception in galactic history. Terra 7 wasn't just an agricultural colony with hidden weapons. It was the most sophisticated military installation ever constructed, disguised as a peaceful farming community. Every building, every field, every piece of equipment had been designed with warfare in mind. Captain Korth was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming, Captain. Korth expected the colonists to panic when his fleet appeared in orbit. Instead, something impossible happened. The peaceful farming world below transformed before his eyes into something that made no tactical sense. "Sir, we're reading massive energy signatures from the planet's surface," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking with confusion. "Power levels are off the charts." "That's impossible," Korth snapped. "It's a farming colony. Run the scans again." But the readings were correct. Across Terra 7, weapon systems that had been hidden for decades were powering up simultaneously. The grain silos had already revealed their rail cannons, but that was just the beginning. What had looked like simple farm buildings were opening to expose missile launch platforms, energy weapons, defensive systems that shouldn't exist on any civilian world. Lee Sun sat in his command center, watching orbital displays that showed the Kreks fleet in perfect detail. For 20 years, he had maintained the weather monitoring stations scattered across the colony. Every morning, he had checked atmospheric conditions and sent routine reports to Federation weather services. But those innocent-looking satellites orbiting Terra 7 were actually advanced military platforms, equipped with sensors and weapons that could track and destroy enemy ships. "All orbital platforms online," he reported to Admiral Chen. "Target acquisition complete." Kim Dae's fingers moved across his fire control console with the smooth precision of someone who had performed this exact sequence countless times. His Targeting computers showed 12 Krex warships hanging in space, their positions already calculated and locked. The rail cannons hidden in the grain silos had enough firepower to punch through any armor the Krex possessed. "Firing solutions confirmed," he announced. "All weapons ready." Park Nari coordinated the colony's defensive systems from her underground command center. The shields protecting Terra 7 weren't the basic energy barriers used by most colonies. These were military-grade deflector arrays powered by fusion reactors that had been disguised as agricultural processing plants. She had run shield frequency simulations thousands of times, preparing for exactly this moment. "Defensive grid at full power," she reported. "All shield generators operating at optimal efficiency." Admiral Chen stood in the main command center, watching tactical displays that showed every ship in the Krex fleet. His staff moved with the efficiency of a military unit that had trained together for decades. These weren't farmers playing at being soldiers, they were experienced military personnel who had been maintaining perfect cover for 20 years. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered quietly. The opening barrage from Terra 7 was unlike anything the Krex had ever experienced. The rail cannons fired in perfect synchronization, the projectiles moving at velocities that made them nearly impossible to track. The Krex ship's shields flared and collapsed under impacts that hit with the force of small asteroids. Captain Korth watched in horror as his flagship's sister ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The colonists weren't just fighting back. They were systematically destroying his fleet with precision that suggested they had been planning this exact battle for years. "How are they doing this?" he screamed at his tactical officer. "These are farmers." But the humans below weren't farmers anymore. They were revealing themselves as the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, one that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Every person on Terra 7 had two lives, their peaceful cover identity and their true role as part of the most sophisticated military installation ever constructed. The Krex fleet had expected easy conquest. Instead, they were facing coordinated resistance that defied every tactical manual in their database. The defenseless colony was dismantling their forces with surgical precision. Using weapons and tactics that shouldn't exist on an agricultural world, the 9-minute war had begun, and the Krex were already losing. Captain Korth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Half his fleet was gone, destroyed by weapons that had emerged from what should have been a defenseless farming world. His remaining ships were taking heavy damage from coordinated attacks that came from every direction. At once. "Sir, we need to retreat," his tactical officer pleaded. "These aren't ordinary colonists, this is a trap." The Korth's pride had been wounded. The idea that simple farmers had outsmarted the mighty Krex Empire was more than he could accept. Of admitting defeat, he made the decision that would seal his fate and change the course of galactic history. "Send a priority transmission to Fleet Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements. Full battle group." His communications officer hesitated. "Sir, that will take at least 2 hours for them to arrive." "Then we hold position until they get here," Korth snarled. "And if these colonists want to play games, we'll show them what happens when you cross the Krex Empire." He opened a channel to the planet below, his voice filled with rage. "Attention, Terra 7. You have 10 minutes to surrender unconditionally, or we will glass your entire world. Every man, woman, and child will burn." The threat reached Admiral Chen in his command center. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then Kim Day looked up from his fire control station, his weathered face showing an expression that would have terrified anyone who knew its meaning. Admiral Kim Day said quietly, "Request permission to authorize Protocol 7. Admiral Chen paused. Protocol 7 was the most classified contingency plan in human military history. Only 3 people in the entire Federation knew it existed: himself, the human military commander, and the Federation president. It had been created for exactly this scenario, but actually using it would change everything. "Are you certain?" Chen asked. "They threatened to glass the planet, sir. That triggers automatic authorization under the Terran Defense Mandate." Chen nodded slowly. "Protocol 7 is authorized. Execute immediately." Kim Day entered a complex authorization code into his console. Across the galaxy, hidden receivers began picking up signals that hadn't been transmitted in 20 years. The real scope of human military preparation was about to be revealed. Choi Min rushed to the deep reactor facility, hidden beneath the colony's power plant. The fusion reactors that had powered Terra 7's disguised weapons were nothing compared to what lay in the underground complex. He began initiating startup sequences for power systems that could supply energy to weapons platforms across multiple star systems. Deep reactors coming online, he reported. Power transmission network activated. Lee's son's fingers flew across targeting computers that suddenly showed star maps spanning thousands of light years. The communication arrays he had maintained weren't just for Terra 7. They were part of a network that connected every human settlement in the galaxy. His screens lit up with response signals from colonies that had seemed completely peaceful. Just minutes before, Park Nari coordinated with sleeper cells that had been hidden across the galaxy for decades. Each human settlement, each trading post, each seemingly innocent research station was actually a military installation waiting for activation. Her communications reached mining colonies, agricultural worlds, scientific outposts, and trading stations, all of them ready to reveal their true nature. All sleeper cells responding, she reported. 47 installations coming online. Weapons platforms activating across 12 star systems. The Krex fleet hung in space above Terra 7, waiting for reinforcements that they believed would turn the tide of battle. But they had no idea they weren't just facing a single disguised military installation. They had triggered a response from the most extensive military network in galactic history. Human colonies that had traded peacefully with aliens for decades began revealing hidden weapons. Research stations that had studied alien cultures suddenly deployed advanced military technology. Even human cargo ships, traveling through space, were powering up weapon systems that had been concealed for years. The Krex had made a fatal error. They thought they were attacking a farming colony, but they had actually declared war on the entire human species. The ground beneath Terra 7 began to vibrate as systems that had been dormant for decades came to life. Kim Dae watched his displays as power readings climbed to levels that should have been impossible for a farming colony. The fusion reactors hidden deep underground weren't just providing energy for weapons. They were part of something much larger. Irrigation. Network converting to primary power distribution, he announced. All systems receiving full power. What the Krex had seen as simple water channels were actually sophisticated power conduits. The irrigation systems that had watered crops for 20 years were now channeling enormous amounts of energy to weapons platforms across the planet. Every pipe, every channel, every distribution network had been designed with warfare in mind. Grain storage facilities across Terra 7 began their transformation. Massive silos that had held wheat and corn split open to reveal ammunition manufacturing systems. The colony hadn't just been storing food, they had been producing weapons and ammunition disguised as agricultural processing. Conveyor belts that had moved grain now carried projectiles to the rail. Cannons hidden throughout the facility. Processing plants that had supposedly refined. Agricultural products revealed their true purpose. Particle accelerators that had been disguised as grain mills powered up, their energy signatures reading like nothing in the Krex database. The humans had been using agricultural cover to hide weapons technology that was decades ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Park Nari coordinated the most surprising element of Terra 7's defense. The colony's children, who should have been cowering in shelters, were actually manning targeting systems in deep underground bunkers. But these weren't terrified kids. They moved with the calm efficiency of trained operators. Teams reporting ready, announced 12-year-old Han Min from his console, all firing solutions calculated. These children had been raised on what their parents called farming games. They had spent their entire lives learning to operate complex machinery, manage resource distribution, and coordinate large-scale operations. What they thought was entertainment had actually been military training disguised as agricultural education. Sector 7 locks achieved, reported 15-year-old Kim Soo from her station, tracking multiple targets, the children's casual expertise. With advanced targeting systems would have shocked anyone who didn't understand how thoroughly the humans had prepared for this moment. Every generation born on Terra 7 had been trained from birth to operate military equipment, all while believing they were learning farming techniques. Lee Sun managed communications with other human colonies across the galaxy. His screens showed dozens of settlements responding to the activation signal. Each colony was revealing similar hidden capabilities, weapon systems disguised as agricultural equipment, military installations hidden beneath peaceful farming communities. New Sol Colony reports full activation, he announced. Terra Prime, defensive grid online, Haven Valley weapons platforms ready. The scope of human preparation was staggering. Every human settlement in the galaxy had been designed as a military installation. The Kreks weren't just facing Terra 7, they were facing the combined might of an entire species that had been preparing for war while pretending to be peaceful farmers and traders. Choi Min monitored power levels as Terra 7's entire infrastructure transformed. The planet wasn't just revealing hidden weapons, it was becoming a single massive weapon system. Every building, every piece of equipment, every system had been designed to work together as one coordinated military installation, planet-wide. Integration complete, he reported. All systems functioning as single unit. The Kreks fleet hung in space above what they had thought was a simple farming world. Instead, they were facing a civilization that had weaponized agriculture itself. Humans had turned farming into warfare, disguising the most sophisticated military technology in the galaxy as simple agricultural equipment. The harvest protocol was fully activated. The Kreks were about to learn what happens when you threaten a species that has been preparing for war for 20 years. The moment Captain Korth threatened to destroy Terra 7, he triggered something that would reshape galactic history. What he thought was a simple planetary assault became a demonstration of human military philosophy that had been refined over centuries of conflict when threatened with total destruction. Respond with overwhelming force. Kim Day's targeting display expanded beyond Terra 7 to show star maps spanning the entire galaxy. The weapon systems hidden beneath the farming colony weren't just planetary defenses, they were part of a network that could strike targets thousands of light years away. His weathered hands moved across controls that most military commanders could only dream of possessing. Initiating multi-system strike coordination, he announced. 17 target zones identified. The Kreks fleet above Terra 7 was just the beginning. Kim Day's targeting computers had identified every Kreks military installation, supply depot, shipyard, and command center within 1,000 light years. The weapons platforms hidden across human space were about to demonstrate their true range and power. Parknari managed targeting data that flowed in from human colonies across the galaxy. Each settlement that had pretended to be peaceful farmers or traders was actually a sophisticated military installation. The cargo ships that had carried grain and livestock between worlds were revealing hidden weapons bays. The mining stations that had extracted ore from asteroids were deploying long-range missile systems. Data stream confirmed from 43 installations, she reported. All targeting solutions synchronized. The scope of human preparation was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. For 20 years, every human settlement had been secretly building and deploying military technology while maintaining perfect cover as civilian operations. The Kreks had threatened one farming colony and inadvertently declared war on the most advanced military network in galactic history. Human weapons that had been hidden for decades proved so advanced that the Kreks Empire's technological advantages simply evaporated. The rail cannons on Terra 7 fired projectiles that could cross star systems in minutes. The particle accelerators disguised as grain mills generated energy beams that could slice through the heaviest armor. The communication networks that had carried farming reports were actually coordinating attacks across multiple galaxies. Lee Sun monitored communications as the human response reached Kreks installations across space. His screen showed Kreks command centers falling silent one by one as strikes hit targets they never knew were threatened. The Kreks military leadership had been planning their next moves when human weapons reached their secret bases, hidden shipyards, and protected command bunkers. Kreks High Command facility destroyed, he reported. Military Academy complex eliminated. Central supply depot offline. The attacks weren't random destruction. They were surgical strikes that dismantled the Krex Empire's ability to wage war. Every target had been carefully chosen to maximize damage to their military capability while minimizing civilian casualties. The humans had been studying Krex military structure for years, preparing for exactly this moment. Across the galaxy, other species watched in stunned silence as the conflict unfolded. Had been fighting the Krex for 3 years, suddenly found their enemies' fleets disappearing from their sensors.
Ow.
The Federation Council received reports of Krex military installations being destroyed by weapons that appeared to come from nowhere. What shocked the galaxy most was that all of this firepower was being coordinated from a single farming colony. Terra 7, which had been ignored as an insignificant agricultural world, was displaying military capabilities that could end the war single-handedly. The Krex Empire, which had terrorized star systems for decades, discovered that their greatest mistake wasn't threatening Terra 7, was underestimating the species that had been quietly preparing for this moment for 20 years. The 9-minute war was entering its final phase, and the humans were demonstrating that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming. The tactical display in Terra 7's command center showed a galaxy transformed. Choiman watched as the last red markers representing active Krex vessels flickered and went dark. His voice was steady as he made the announcement that would echo through history. Final target eliminated. Okay, all Krex military assets neutralized. Total elapsed time, 9 minutes, 14 seconds. The silence that followed was profound. For 3 years, the Krex Empire had been the galaxy's greatest threat. Their fleets had destroyed entire star systems. Their armies had conquered dozens of worlds. Their very name had struck fear into civilizations across the galaxy. And now, in less than 10 minutes, they had been completely eliminated as a military force. Kim Day looked at his targeting display one final time. Every Krex command center, every military shipyard, every weapons depot, every fleet staging area, all of them were gone. The precision of the strikes had been absolute. The humans had identified and eliminated every component of the Krex war machine without touching a single civilian target. All weapons systems stand down, he announced. Turn to agricultural configuration across Terra 7. The incredible weapon systems that had revealed themselves began to fold back into their peaceful disguises. Rail cannons retracted into grain silos. Particle accelerators powered down and resumed their cover as processing plants. The irrigation channels that had carried massive amounts of energy returned to their normal function of watering crops. Nari confirmed the completion of targeting operations across the galaxy. Her screens showed human installations on dozens of worlds reporting successful strikes. The coordination had been flawless. Every target hit simultaneously. Every objective achieved without a single failure. All remote targeting systems confirm. Neutralization, she reported. Beginning conversion back to civilian operations. The children in the targeting bunkers began shutting down their systems with the same casual efficiency they had shown during the battle. To them, this had been just another training exercise, albeit the most important one of their lives. Would return to their farming games tomorrow, but the galaxy would never be the same. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, the Vorthok Collective's military commanders stared at their tactical displays in confusion. The massive Krex fleets that had been preparing for another major offensive had simply vanished. Entire battle groups that had been tracked for months were no longer responding to communications. "Sir, we're not detecting any Krex military presence." In any of the contested systems, reported a bewildered Vorthok intelligence officer. It's as if their entire military just ... disappeared. The Federation Council was receiving similar reports from across their territory. Emergency sessions were called as officials struggled to understand what had happened. The war that had consumed the galaxy for 3 years had apparently ended in minutes. No one knew how or why. Li Sun established communication with Federation Command Headquarters. The officials on the other end of the transmission were in a state of shocked disbelief. They had been preparing for another year of brutal warfare, possibly the complete collapse of the Federation. Instead, they found themselves trying to comprehend reports that seemed impossible. "This is Admiral Chen of Terra 7, the colony's administrator announced. His real rank and identity finally revealed. The Krek's military threat has been eliminated. All Federation territories are secure. The Federation officials struggled to process what they were hearing. Terra 7 had been listed as a minor agricultural colony with minimal defenses. The idea that it had somehow ended the war single-handedly was beyond their comprehension. "How is this possible?" asked the Federation military commander. "Our intelligence showed Terra 7 as a farming settlement." "That was the point, Admiral," Chen replied calmly. "Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 20 years. We're not a species seeking protection. We're the galaxy's insurance policy." The 9-minute war was over. The galaxy was about to discover that the humans had been its guardians all along. The morning after the 9-minute war, Kim Day walked through the wheat fields of Terra 7 just as he had done every day for 20 years. He wore the same faded coveralls, carried the same worn tools, and moved with the same unhurried pace of a man who had spent his life working the land. But everything had changed. Federation officials had been arriving since dawn, their shuttles landing in the same fields that had hidden the galaxy's most advanced weapons just hours before. They walked among the grain silos that had revealed massive rail cannons, trying to understand how such devastating firepower could be concealed so completely. "We need to understand how you did this," said Federation Military Commander Hayes, following Kim Day through the wheat rows. "Our intelligence never detected any of these capabilities." Kim Day paused to check a grain stalk, his weathered hands examining it with the care of someone who genuinely understood agriculture. "That was the point, Commander. We spent 2 decades making sure no one would look twice at a farming colony. The scope of human preparation was staggering. Every human settlement in the galaxy had been designed as a dual-purpose facility. Mining colonies that extracted or from asteroids also manufactured advanced weapons. The trading posts that facilitated commerce between species also served as intelligence-gathering stations. The research facilities that studied alien cultures also developed military technology. Parknari resumed her irrigation duties, walking the same channel she had maintained for years. Federation observers watched in amazement as the young woman, who had coordinated planetary defense systems, returned to checking water levels and nutrient flows. The targeting computers she had operated with such expertise were already hidden beneath agricultural equipment once again.
"How long have you
been planning this?" asked a Federation intelligence officer. "Since the day we joined the Federation," Parknari replied, adjusting a water valve with practiced efficiency. "We knew that eventually someone would threaten the peace we all worked to build. We wanted to be ready." Choi Min returned to his equipment, maintenance duties, but now Federation engineers followed him around, trying to understand how farming machinery could transform into weapons platforms. Tractors and harvesters that had worked the fields for decades were actually sophisticated military equipment disguised as agricultural tools. "Every piece of equipment serves dual purposes," he explained to the amazed engineers. "The harvester that cuts grain can also deploy defensive systems. The irrigation pumps that water crops can also power weapons arrays. We built everything to look normal while serving our real mission." Lee Sun continued monitoring communications from his grain storage facility. The building looked exactly the same as it had the day before, but now Federation officials knew it housed technology that could coordinate military operations across the galaxy. The weather reports he sent each morning were actually intelligence updates shared between human settlements. The children of Terra 7 returned to their schools, where they continued playing the farming games that had actually been military training simulators. Their parents watched them with pride, knowing that this generation had helped save the galaxy. While believing they were just learning agriculture, Federation officials struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. The war that had consumed the galaxy for 3 years had ended, not because humanity had joined the fight, but because they had been fighting it all along. While other species had focused on the obvious military threats, humans had been quietly preparing for the moment when someone would threaten the peace they all cherished. The wheat fields of Terra 7 waved peacefully in the twin sun breeze, looking exactly as they had for 20 years. But the galaxy would never look at a human farm the same way again. Every peaceful agricultural world, Every quiet trading post, every humble mining station might be hiding capabilities that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The harvest was complete, and humanity had revealed itself as the galaxy's silent guardian.